Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Coach's Corner, and this is likely the last installment of the consumption tax series. And unless people would like me to delve further into the idea, which I'd be happy to do. For this part of the series, I'd like to simply discuss the consumption tax versus our current tax structure in terms of philosophical approach, purely. Okay, I will use some numbers to illustrate my point, but I would like to keep this solely focused on the philosophy of taxation and freedom, liberty, that kind of thing. Okay, so it is often held up on the more socialistic side of the argument, ideological spectrum, that the United States of America is this unfettered capitalistic society, and that unfettered capitalism is the reason for X, Y, or Z problem. Okay, I'd like to dispel that notion succinctly. First and foremost, the idea that we're unfettered borders on absurd to me. I think you would actually have to find some ways around some very evident truths in your own mind to arrive at that conclusion. Okay, and what I mean, how do you fetter capitalistic activity? Well, one way is to apply a regulation to it. Well, you can't do this, this, or this, so it will lead to this, this, or this economic outcome. And another way is taxation, which I'll certainly get into more in depth. But the opposite of unfettered is fettered. Well, like I said, regulations and taxes are the fetters of capitalistic economic transaction. All right, and they're written into law. They're legal structures against those capitalistic economic interactions between people and or businesses. All right. We have hundreds of thousands of pages of these, not just in the tax code, but in the regulatory code upon individuals and businesses alike. Big businesses, small businesses, industry-wide regulatory structures that differ across the board, and some that apply across all industries and all individuals. Hundreds of thousands of pages of these. So the idea that we're unfettered is just, it's silly. It really is. Okay. But I'd like to move on and discuss why we have the income tax structure, the progressive income tax structure that we do now. And that's because of the 1848 Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, and which he lists as the number 2 priority to the implementation of communism is the plank that there should be a progressive income tax structure. As wealth goes up, the wealthy pay more. And I don't disagree with the notion, but I disagree with the confiscation of those resources as opposed to merely the collection of those resources. Okay, I'll get into that. But he knew, like I know, that in order to achieve a society that's closer to pure equality, you have to hamstring those with more. It's Harrison Bergeroning those who have more. If you don't apply a greater punitive tax structure to certain people who are capable, not just intellectually but physically, of attaining more, then you can't have a more equal fiscal outcome in society. Okay, so it is the idea, it is a communistic, socialistic idea to apply a progressive tax system based on confiscation of property, not collection of property. Okay, and here's what I mean by this. People that say that it's an economic misconception to call our society socialistic, here's what I'd like to point out. Okay, I have here, these are the current tax brackets. There's 7 of them right now. 10%, 15%, 25%, 28%, 33%, 35%, and 39.6%. Okay, most all of our society, in terms of sheer population, fall within the 15 to 25%. The 15% tax bracket is $18,651 to $75,900. That's a married joint filing. And then the 25% bracket is $75,901 to $153,100. That's where most of society falls. Okay, those are the tax brackets you fall into. So let's use the 25% because it's a nice round number to illustrate the point here. All right? No individual can alleviate themselves voluntarily from paying taxes, okay? Try to avoid paying your taxes, and I'll watch what happens on the nightly news, okay? Men with guns will be sent by the government, by the IRS, who has a SWAT team, by the way, to collect those resources that they claim belong to the collective. And that's what I mean by this, okay? We're not purely socialistic, but we absolutely have a socialistic mindset within our country, far, far greater degree of this than people will acknowledge. Okay, so at 25%, a nice round number, the government says we're going to take this 25% from you as individuals, and that goes to the collective, okay? They are considering, the government is considering that 25% as not your property. It belongs to the collective, okay? And that's what socialism is. That's what communism is the abolition of private property. So in terms of the income tax structure based on confiscation of that which is earned, 25% of it is deemed not your property. That's the abolition of 25% of what you earn, okay? The difference between this structure and the consumption tax from a moral philosophical perspective, the consumption tax still takes a far greater amount of resources from those who have the most, from the wealthiest, okay? But it's based on the choice of purchase, okay? It's not confiscated, it's freely purchased at the point of sale among all goods and services, okay? Let's use the example of a wealthy person buying a $100 million yacht. I have seen, I get Tiger Woods in the past, I guess I've seen where, it may have been him, correct me if I'm wrong, purchased a $100 million yacht. Well, if you apply the consumption tax philosophy to this, as soon as he makes that purchase of a $100 million yacht, he would then pay a 23% tax on that. So, $100 million yacht, $23 million of taxes. Boom, on the spot. But it's a tax system where he chose to pay that. He didn't have to buy the yacht. Didn't have to do it. But he chose to. So he also then chose to pay $23 million, 23% tax on that purchase. Okay, it's a far more morally upright approach at collecting collective revenues to do collective public works, to build public institutions, things of that nature, than it is to simply confiscate that which Tiger Woods has produced along his career. There are a lot of things that I don't like paying money for that the government runs, but I would have a lot less problem paying for those things if I were freely giving my tax dollars based on the purchase choices that I make, as opposed to it just being taken from me every year. All right, it's not morally upright to take from some and give to others, even if you vote for it to happen, okay? Theft is not morally upright, whether you vote for it or not, okay? That's what socialism is. It's theft. It's legalized theft. The income tax is legalized theft. I know that people don't agree with that. I understand that. But I want to make the point that if we were to eliminate the compulsory mechanism of our income tax structure in the greatest, largest, most expansive economy in the history of the world, other countries would have no choice but to follow suit in order to be competitive. Otherwise, businesses would flock back to the United States in droves, much like they leave the United States in droves under high tax, high regulatory environments. People don't want to be stolen from on a regular basis. They don't want to have X% of their wealth confiscated, but they wouldn't mind giving it in the form of their purchases, in the form of charity or whatnot. We are the most charitable country on earth by a long shot, and it's because we have been mostly free economically throughout the course of our existence. if this were to happen on a scale in the United States where we remove the element of compulsion in our tax structure and other countries followed suit, what you would see globally is the most rapid increase in liberty among individuals in terms of what they're allowed to keep from their own earned productive enterprises worldwide that mankind has ever seen. And I can personally think of no greater goal for a sentient species than the goal of liberty. And though I would love to continue to discuss this in great detail, and certainly will if you'd like to message me or email me privately, I think that is good enough for government work in terms of talking about the moral and philosophical approach to changing the tax code in the way that we collect as opposed to confiscate other people's resources and then spend them. I hope you found this thought-provoking, and thank you for following along in the Consumption Tax series. Have a great day.